capital market. Ada sikit lagi on capital market. Right, so last week we look at the definition, right? The advantages and also the disadvantages of common stocks. So today we will continue with the different types of common stocks. All right, whereby we have here we have blue chips, growth stocks, income stocks, and cyclical stocks, defensive stock, and also speculative stocks. And we will go through one by one to look at the definition of each, right? Right, so let's look at the first one, which is blue chip stocks. All right, so this is commonly known as blue chip stocks. So they are actually stocks that belong to large, well-established and financially strong companies. All right, remember last week we talked about top 30 companies where you give me examples. For example, we have Petronas, we have Maxis, we have Celcom, we have Sime Darby. So those are actually, we have Nestle. So those are actually the types of blue chip stocks. So they belong to a large, well-established and also financially strong companies, whereby these companies, they have a long and stable record of earnings and consistently paying dividend. So normally they pay a high dividend, right? They pay high dividend. They are growth-oriented company, right? High dividend. High dividend, and they are also growth-oriented, right? Okay. A growth-oriented company, and also the industry leaders. So the example, like we mentioned last week, we are talking about top 30 companies from the index, right? We also have growth stocks. So they are called blue chips. So we have growth stocks. So these are the stocks that have recorded a higher than average sales, earnings, and also dividends. But the difference between these growth and also blue chip stocks, so these blue chip stocks, they pay high dividend. Compared to growth stocks, they normally pay small dividends. Why? Because this is actually due to the reinvestment of the profits made for further growth. So they are probably a new company, right? But they have an excellent record, but they need to pay small dividend because they want to reinvest. And normally their price, the share price, move at a faster rate, right? They goes up and down at a faster rate. And for those who are seeking capital gain, which means you want to invest and you want to hold the shares, so this is the best option for you, right? So you buy and you hold and wait until the price goes up and then you can sell. So this is considered as growth stocks because this company normally they make reinvestment. Next is income stock. Okay, so these are stocks that are known for its stable records of paying higher than average dividends. So here, if these investors are actually seeking for high and reliable dividend payment, so this is the best place to go, right? And sometimes if you look at the different types of common stock, and some stock, they might be in the same, they have like one or two same categories, which means, for example, if we're talking about blue chips, sometimes that industry can also be a cyclical stocks. All right, so for this income stock is again suitable for investors seeking for high and reliable dividend, and these are normally the company we call it at the maturity stage of the life cycle. So you know the product life cycle, the industry life cycle. So these income stocks normally they are at the maturity life cycle, and they normally generously paying dividend, right? So the keyword here is that they have stable records of paying higher than average dividends. So they pay a lot of dividends to their shareholders, right? Next one is cyclical stocks. So these are more responsive to the changes in the economy, and the performance of the companies are closely linked to the economic cycle. So remember last week I talked about when we first hit by this COVID-19 pandemic, we are looking for, even now, we're looking for mask, we're looking for glove, and now vaccine. So these are cyclical stock that closely linked to the economic cycle. Okay. Defensive stock, okay. Kalau tadi dekat sini, responsive to the changes in the economy. So what happens in the economy is actually reflected in this type of stocks. For defensive stock, these are the opposite, less affected. Whatever happens in the economy, they are less affected. For example, business in the food industry. And macam mana rupa pun orang, people will still eat. So less affected by the changes in economy. So during the economic downturn pun, the price of these stocks normally stable je. Kalau macam tadi for this one, during the economic, kita kata economic downturn, so the price will follow ataupun closely linked to the economic downturn, but not for this one. Okay, less affected by the changes in economy. But it is very difficult to find this type of stock. Difficult to find. So kalau kita tengok kebanyakannya nanti ada masuk dalam the other categories, but not this one, opposite. Speculative, okay, the keyword here is speculate. So speculative stocks are the stocks that the prices move drastically due to both fundamental and psychological factors. So last week pun kita dah tengok kan the example of fundamental and psychological factors ni. So they move to a certain degree of optimism, pessimism, and even fear and hope of the performance of that particular stock. And some analysts, they actually relate these speculative stocks to companies which are kita kata new ataupun they lack track records. Since they are new, so there is no track records of dividends, track records of earnings. So we do not know. And then the analysts also do not know, so they speculate. So these type of stocks normally move drastically due to both factors, fundamental and also psychological. Psychological ni yang the qualitative factors, so pessimism, optimism, even fear. Right, so these are speculative stock. We also have another one, yang ni saya tambah, Sharia compliance stock. Right, remember last time I show you the stock screener, whereby we can choose what types of stocks that we want to invest, and some are actually classified as Sharia non-compliant securities and also Sharia compliance. So if you look at the list of company, kalau dia ada bracket Sharia tu, itu ialah Sharia approved, bracket S. So some will be classified as Sharia non-compliant securities. So if they are involved in the following core activities. Okay, number one, of course, financial services based on riba or interest. Ini tak boleh lah. Gambling and gaming. This is very clear cut, ada riba, gambling and gaming. Manufacture or sale of non-halal products or related products. Conventional insurance, okay, you dah belajar insurance guys, so conventional insurance considered as non-compliant stocks. Entertainment activities that are non-permissible according to the Sharia. Manufacture or sale of tobacco-based product or related product. Contoh macam British American Tobacco tu kan, BAT tu, those are not Sharia compliant because they manufacture and sell tobacco-based product. Stock broking or share trading in Sharia non-compliant securities and other activities deemed non-permissible according to Sharia. So, if the company or the industry fulfill ataupun ada these criteria ataupun these factors, so they will not be classified as Sharia compliant. Okay. Alright, so last week we look at the risk of investing in stock market and also the advantages and disadvantages of common stock. So here we have factors affecting the stock prices. Okay, kita dah tahu risk dia apa, what are the risk when investing in stock market. So we know the advantages, we know the disadvantages. So these are the factors affecting the stock price. It is actually related to the risk factor, whereby when you look at the factors that affect the stock price, first of all, we have the economic factors. Okay. So ini sama je, if you go back to even our topic on interest, we still at the same factors, quite similar explanation and also factors. So first of all, we have economic factors. So these are the economic variables such as GDP, interest rate, unemployment rate, money supply, industrial production, currency value, and trade balances. So if the economic factors are favorable, bagus, then the stock price normally will go up, right? So it is a positive relationship. But if the economic factors are not good or going down, for example, our GDP is low, or the currency value is also going down, so the stock price also will go down, right? The second one is industry outlook. This is actually when we look at how competitive is the business, the regulatory condition of the industry life cycle, right? Go back to the different types of stock tadi, kita ada satu kan yang kita kata dia mature tu, right? So that is the industry outlook for that particular industry and also for that particular company. The labor condition and also the technological developments. Sama juga lah, if everything goes well, then the stock price will go up. Political scenario, we are looking at some stability in the economy, in the economy also political, right? So if it is stable, then the business climate in the industry is also stable and the stock price will not affected much. For example, if we are talking about mana country nak bagi, kita bagi Libya contohnya kan. So there's a war there before this. So based on the political scenario, the business climate in the country is not so good. That is why at some point the share price will go down. Corporate earnings, the earnings condition, right? Especially towards the end of the year, because most of the company, the year end is September. So now dah banyak lah company yang produce their annual reports and also announce their earnings. So we will understand that some companies, they report loss, some companies, they report profit. So that is the corporate earnings. That will also affect the stock price and the earnings conditions, the sales levels, the dividends, and other related decisions such as mergers and acquisition. Okay. This is the qualitative factor, crowd psychology. Overall perception of investors to the economic condition. If the crowd or the shareholders or the public, they have a strong feeling to buy or sell, or is it, when we go back to this, mana tadi? Speculative ni kan? Nampak ada, this is depending on the public or the shareholders, the investor, depending on the investor, if they are optimist, pessimist, or they have fear, or they have hope, so that will actually affect their affect the stock price and their overall perception. They want to sell, want to buy, or they are greedy, or they have fear towards the industry. So this is where the qualitative factor comes in. And of course, the international stock market condition. Okay, so ini pun samalah, if everything goes well, then the stock price also goes up. Alright, so we spent quite some time for common stock for our capital market, because as I mentioned last week, we've only focused on common stock. And then next we are going to look at bond market. So ada dua sajalah dalam ni, we have common stock and also equity market, whereby we focus on common stock, and we also have bond market, and this is the explanation for bond. So next element in capital market is a bond market, right? So you have to really be able to distinguish, because we already finished talking about money market. Okay, so dalam money market kita ada forex, and then here we look at capital market, because if you look at your pro forma, we actually covered a lot of different kita kata financial industry. So here under capital market, we have equity and also bond. So ini saya kata tadi lah, the equity kita hanya fokus on common stock. Saya tak cover sangat on preferred stock lah. Sebab preferred stock is very limited and the issuance is very limited. So kita hanya fokus on common stock. And next one would be bond. So dalam capital market kita fokus dua je lah, right? Okay, what is bond? Alright, so bond is an instrument that has a maturity date. This is the difference between bond and also stock. Stock tak ada maturity date. Bond dia ada maturity date, which is the date that the bond matures, and the issuer will have to refund the principal to the investor as promised. Okay, because for common stock is your investment, bond is like loan. For example, the company, when they issue bond, it's like they are taking loan from us. So when the maturity date comes, the issuer has to pay back to the investor as promised, together with the interest. So here a coupon rate is also stated. A coupon rate is the interest lah, whereby the rate that investor receive periodically 6 months or yearly until its maturity. The rate is fixed. As compared to common stock, the dividend is not fixed. The dividend depends on the performance of the company, depends on the whatever factors that we discussed before. But for bond, the rate is fixed. We also have the YTM, yield to maturity, whereby it is the actual rate of return if the bond is kept until maturity. Okay. And we also have a term that we call indenture. Indenture is an agreement that binds the relationship between bond issue and the investor. All right. And the other term that we have for bond is call provision. Okay. Call provision means in some cases that particular bond can be called before its maturity. Can call before maturity. Because if we look at the definition of a bond, it has a maturity date. And the issuer has to refund the principal to the investor as promised. But there is a call provision for certain types of bonds whereby the issuer can call the bond before maturity. Okay. Also another avenue for efficient movement of funds from surplus to deficit units. Alright, so the bond market creates the relationship of a lender and a borrower. Nampak tak? Tadi for common stock ni is not a lender and borrower. It is an investment. You are interested in that particular company, in that particular stock, and you buy. So you become the investor and you have the percentage of ownership. But for bond market, it is more like a relationship of a lender and a borrower. Okay, you let someone borrow your money and then they have to pay you back together with the interest, okay, which is fixed rate. So it is an instrument where the issuer promised to pay a periodic interest to the investor and repay the principal amount borrowed at maturity. Nampak tak? So dia bagi kita issue bond, and then the issuer bayar interest untuk the bondholder, and at the end of the maturity period dia akan bayar balik the principal amount. So it's like a lender and borrower. This is some of the history of the bond market in Malaysia. So back in 1987, we can recall back to 1987. So whereby the 98% of bond market is actually dominated by Malaysian government. So the government normally issue this bond, mainly for financing of government development needs. So if you can recall, kita ada prior chapter, kita dah tengok kan the different types of money market instruments tu. So one of them are actually the securities issued by, if it is issued by the government, they are mainly for financing of government development needs ataupun certain government project. Right. Then 10 years later, composition of MGS ni, balance are instrument issued by Khazanah Nasional, Cagar Mas, Dana Harta, and also Dana Modal. These are all government owned. And starting 2006, baru kita ada private sector bonds plus the Islamic bonds. So Islamic bonds is called Sukuk. So in case you came across, I don't know, when you read something, it says Sukuk. Sukuk is Islamic bonds. Konsep dia sama dengan bond tapi dia Islamic lah. Alright, next is the regulatory authorities for our bond market, right? Whereby we have the first one is of course Penegara, okay, because they are concerned with credit allocation to private sector. We have SC, Securities Commission, because they take care of our capital market development. And of course, we have Companies Commission of Malaysia. This requires issuer to register prospectus and provide information to the prospectus that complies with BNM and CCM. Alright, remember kita tengok prospectus juga kan last week, when the company in this primary market, they want to first time issue the shares ataupun first time want to go public. So they issue prospectus. what they have to do is they have to register the prospectus with CCM. All right, and then who are the participants of the bond market? Of course, we have financial institutions. Okay, financial institutions who are actually the intermediaries. Intermediaries, we have bank negara, we have corporations, we have brokers, we have rating agency, and also foreign fund managers. So they can take the position as a lead or co-arranger, the underwriter, the guarantor, principal dealers. The concept is quite similar to the issuance of common stock when they want to issue bonds. So they have these participants of these institutions to make sure that the bond issuance is successful. All right. And we can see that the provident funds, so in Malaysia we have APF, we also have tabung haji, institutional investors, they invest heavily in bonds, up to 50% of total investment, for example, for EPF, and also insurance company. So for our bond market in Malaysia ni, normally all these financial intermediaries such as EPF ni, they memang invest a lot lah in our bond market. All right, let's look at the instrument in the bond market. All right, so for equities, senang lah kita tengok satu je. We have common stock, but for bonds, we have quite a lengthy list. So first of all, we have MGS. Not Methodist Girls School, Malaysian Government Securities. So these are the interest-bearing long-term securities issued by the government of Malaysia, nama pun Malaysian government. So issued by the Malaysian government with interest payable semi-annually, which means 6 bulan sekali lah, every 6 months. And having a tenure of normally more than 1 year. Sebab dia long term kan, so normally more than 1 year. And the fundraise will be used for the national development expenditure. Okay, again, this is also for the government project lah. Next is MTB, Malaysian Treasury Bills. Okay, so TB are short-term government securities. Jadi long term, ini short term. Maturities not exceeding 1 year. Normally dia setahun je lah, because this is short term. To finance national expenditure juga. Tapi ini issued by BNM. Beza This one issued by the government, Kerajaan Malaysia. Perbendaharaan Malaysia lah. So the government of Malaysia issue the MGS. But this one, MTB, is issued by BNM on behalf of the government. So these bills are issued at a discount through competitive auction facilitated by BNM with original maturity of 3 months, 6 months and 1 year. Sebab dia short term, paling lama 1 year lah. So MTBs are auctioned weekly through the principal dealers on a discounted basis at a redeemable at face value on maturity. So these are 2 examples issued by the government. Macam saya kata tadi lah, for the bond market ni normally issued by the government. So we have MGS, we have MTB, we have government investment issues, long term and short term, consists of both long term and short term, non-interest bearing government securities, respectively issued based on Islamic principles by the government of Malaysia. MTB pun ada juga MITB, Malaysian Islamic Treasury Bills, short term, macam MTB tadi, based on Islamic principle lah. So nampak kat sini tadi yang ni conventional lah. Alright, because we have another one MITB ni. Ini pun the original maturity is 1 year for this one MITB ni. 1 year, both conventional and Islamic institution can buy and trade MITB. But there is no restriction for this Islamic product ni. It can be bought by both conventional and also Islamic institution. Dia tak restrict lah, only Islamic dia boleh beli MITB, tak conventional pun boleh. BNM notes, okay, Bank Negara Monetary Notes, I, yang mana ada I, and then you know by now ada I there, it means Islamic, Islamic securities issued by Bank Negara, replacing the BNN, Bank Negara Negotiable Notes, for purpose of managing liquidity in the Islamic financial market. Right, so to take care of this Islamic financial market, BNM issue BNM I, BNB, Bank Negara Bills. So this is similar to MTB, short-term instrument, maturity not exceeding 1 year, and issued on a discounted basis by auction to principal dealers. Categorized as liquid assets. So normally it is purchased by financial institution to meet their liquidity and statutory reserve requirement. Remember the banks that we learned before, they can ada maintain certain level of liquidity and also SLR. So among other things that they can involve in is actually short-term instrument issued by Bank Negara, which is BNB, Bank Negara Bills. You can always go back to your financial statements and the bank's financial statement that you have for your assignments, and look at their reserve. Dalam notes to the accounts, normally ada the details of the reserve, what type of reserve do they have, or what types of bond do they have. So you can look at your bank of choice to look at whether they have this BNB, dia ada BNMI tak, dia ada government bonds tak. So you can check the notes to the financial statement. So dalam tu biasanya ada details lah. Cagamas instrument. Here again, this is Cagamas Berhad. Cagamas Berhad is our National Mortgage Corporation. So also a good place for you to go. Cagamas, nama pun Cagamas, Malaysia punya. The instrument related to the housing loan financed by financial institution and the government. Ini pun bond lah, Cagamas bond. So instruments include floating rate bonds, fixed rate bonds, Cagamas notes, and Mudarabah bonds. So untuk Islamic part pun ada dekat sini. Okay, issued by Cagamas Berhad. Commercial paper. Cagamas, normally the Cagamas instrument ni also short term lah, short term and maybe medium term pun ada lah, but most of all dia memang focus on short term because these are instrument related to the loans, housing loans. Commercial paper, similar to MTB, where the tenures are no less than 1 month, but not more than 12 months. Also short term. Medium term, okay, ni tadi short term. Medium term notes, more than 1 year but not exceeding 5 years. So the issued can be in conventional or Islamic based on the mode of issuing, and is either direct placement or by tender. Right, so ini sama juga lah kalau macam tadi you look at this mana tadi? Alright, macam MTB dia auction weekly. Dia jual at a competitive auction. MTB ni auction. Kalau yang ni dia buka tender, sama jugalah. Right, direct placement or by tender. So whoever wins can buy these MTNs. And last one is corporate bonds. Kalau tadi we look at the semua yang kita discuss sebelum ni is actually issued by the government, by the Bank Negara, by Cagamas, by the government. We also have corporate bonds. These are bonds issued by corporations, not the government, but the corporations. Islamic or conventional, fixed or floating, or can be issued without interest. Okay, without interest or zero coupon. And the interest payment can be quarterly, semi-quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. So not only the government can issue the bond, corporations also can issue bonds, and it can be both Islamic or conventional. Okay. Let's look at the bond ratings, because when we talk about common stock, kita ada factors ataupun stock prices, and we also have what we call a technical and fundamental analysis. Yang saya tunjuk last week tu kan, kita ada screen and then ada chart, the analysis done by the analyst, whereby that will advise us whether to buy, to sell, or to hold certain shares based on the performance of the stock ataupun based on the performance of the company. But for bond, okay, how do we actually choose the bonds? It is actually based on the bond rating. Dia special sikit. Untuk stock kita tak ada stock rating. Tapi kita ada all the KLCI tu, all the index tu. That is for the bond, for the stock performance. For bonds, okay, the rating is in terms of we call it a rating. The lower the risk, the higher the rating. Okay. So when we talk about bond rating, we are looking at the default risk or risk of non-payment of the interest and the principal at maturity. Remember, it is like a borrower and lender punya relationship. When you give someone to borrow your money, you expect they to pay you back. So there is always a default risk for bonds. So we want to look at to assess the risk. So the lower the risk, the higher the rating will be. So the higher rating means the issuer has the ability to make a timely payment of the interest and principal to the bondholder. So the rating is an evaluation on the credit quality of the issuance, right? And it is also the assessment on the likelihood of default by the issuer. All right, so in Malaysia, the bonds are performed by rating agencies, such as we have RAM, Rating Agency Malaysia, and also MARC, Malaysian Rating Corporation Berhad. So ini normally if you look at business news, kita adalah the rating agency provided by these agencies. So RAM Holdings is a leading provider of independent credit research and advisory services. So similar to the analyst and the fundamental and technical analyst, so these rating agencies, they also provide research, credit research and advisory services, and they come up with a list of ratings. Similar things with MARC, Malaysian Rating Corporation Berhad. It is a domestic credit rating institution in Malaysia. So M stands for Malaysia. Right, let's look at one by one. Kita tengok RAM dulu. RAM Holdings, formerly known as Rating Agency Malaysia Berhad, established in 1990s. Untuk apa? To evaluate the domestic debt capital market and as the nation's first credit rating agency. Because why? Sama juga dengan bila kita tengok, kita kata in Malaysia, Malaysia combined with a FTSE, which is the London Times. So kita nak internationally recognized index. Similar with bonds, we also need kita kata independent and also reliable credit rating agency. Right? When you want to attract the market, when you want to attract the investor to buy the bonds, we need a very good record and also ratings, so that the investor have trust to purchase our bond. And then the shareholders for RAM ni comprise both local and foreign financial institutions. 2007 dia tukar nama lah, kita ada RAM Holdings ni. So what they do is they cultivate of new business and continue to provide training. Okay, they provide training juga as well as economic research that promotes financial and credit expertise in addition to soft skills. So they have RAM ratings and also credit rating service dengan strategic business and advisory services lah. Alright, so they are a research company, so they buat research and they provide rating. Economic research ada, training service pun ada. So apa dia buat is they provide insights into the Malaysian bond market. Again, this is actually to help clients ataupun investor in decision making process. Because let's say you are interested to buy certain corporate bonds, but you do not know the performance of the bond. This is where you come and look at the rate and also the performance. So if the rating is high, then you know this is a good bond. And when you invest in or you purchase that bond, so you will get the interest and also there will be a very low default risk, that the risk that the issuer will not able to pay you back your principal. Okay, so this RAM agency will help you make the decision regarding buying which type of bonds. So they are the expert team provide in-depth analysis on the domestic debt capital market untuk issuer and also investor, as well as consultancy and also business advisory services. So it is an institution juga, it's an institution, it's a unit that help investors to decide which bonds is actually good or not. Okay, I'm not sure whether you have heard of S&P, Standard & Poor's. This is the internationally recognized ratings agency. Okay, so RAM pun established affiliation with S&P, Standard & Poor's. So directly involved in other developing markets such as Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and also Kazakhstan. Okay, and in the regional arena, RAM is a member of the Association of Credit Rating Agencies in Asia or ACRA. Okay, so it is also an internationally recognized rating agency. That is for RAM. And the second one is MARC, Malaysian. Again, it is officially launched in 1996. So siapa yang ada dalam MARC ni ialah life and general insurance companies. Beza sikit. Stockbrokers and investment banks in Malaysia. Each shareholder owns no more than 4.9% equity in MARC. Beza dengan RAM tadi, kita tengok the shareholder dia ialah local and foreign financial institution. But for MARC ni, dia ada main investor or main shareholders dia consists of life and general insurance company. Okay, and investment bank in Malaysia, dia tak ada foreign. Tadi RAM ada foreign. So what do? They help, especially in the development of capital market. They also provide quality ratings and comprehensive research services. Okay, dia akan rate the corporations, dia akan rate the debt issues, dia akan rate the Islamic capital market instrument, the sukuk tadi. Okay, dia akan rate all these asset-backed securities, the financial strength ratings of financial institutions and insurance company. So they provide independent rating. Okay, so kita tengok dua agencies, RAM and also MARC ni, they provide ratings for the bonds. Okay, next we want to know kenapa kena ada bond rating ni kan? Why do we need the bond ratings? Okay, rating is an evaluation of the credit quality of the issuance of the debt instruments. Assessment, like I said earlier, it is an assessment of the likelihood of default. So lagi rendah the risk dia, lagi tinggi the rating. Okay, rendah risk, tinggi rating. And the rating is performed by, kita ada Malaysia, kita pakai RAM and MARC, and also Standard & Poor's, Moody's Investor Service, and also Fitch Rating. Ini semua yang internationally recognized lah. So again, the lower the risk, the higher will be the rating. The higher rating means the issuer has the ability to make a timely payment. Ini yang penting because for bond kita ada fixed interest kan. So we want timely payment and also principal. Let's say dia kata tadi kita tengok contoh bond tu mature in 1 year. So in that 1 year period kita nak dapat the payment. Let's say dia kata semi-annuity, so you need 2 interest payment. And at the end of the bond period, the maturity period, you will get back the principal. And that is why the rating is very important. Kita tak nak lah, it's like you give money or you buy the bond, tapi end of the day, bila sampai maturity date, you will not get back the principal lah. Tu orang tak nak lah. That is why we need bond rating. Bond rating is not it helps in making decisions because they provide a complete, accurate and reliable information of the issue of the bond, create awareness of the credit worthiness among bond investors, cost-effective marketing tool, effective movement of surplus fund in the financial system, and also provide an easily understood scale for the investor to assess a bond issue. Okay, tengok the scale dia senang je, macam ni je scale dia. Okay. The excellent one or the highest rating is AAA. Macam battery pula. AAA. Ability to pay principal and pay interest on a timely basis is extremely high, which means very good. So, bila keluar je satu-satu instrumen ni, satu-satu bond instrument, letak tiba-tiba kat bawah tu ada rating AAA. So you know this is extremely high, very good. So, you can proceed. Nak beli boleh sebab AAA. Next one is AA. Tadi extremely high, very strong. So you see the explanation is actually they are talking about principal and interest on a timely manner je. Itu je keyword dia, nak tengok the risk tu. So ini dia boleh bayar extremely high. AA, very strong ability to repay and pay interest on a timely basis with limited increment risk compared to issues rated in the highest category. Bagus jugalah AA, kurang sikit daripada AAA. Ability to repay principal and pay interest is strong. This issue could be more vulnerable to adverse developments, both internal and external, than obligations with higher rating. Right? We might wonder, how do these rating agency come up with this rate? That is why kita tengok tadi dia function dia macam buat research kan. So dia pergi cari all the information related to the company, the investors dia siapa, the business dia macam mana, economic development, the factors dia, economic factors dia macam mana, the performance dia, the earnings, the sales, the dividends paid. So dia memang assess everything. Then they come up with this rating. Okay. Triple B, lowest investment grade category, indicates adequate capacity to repay, cukup-cukup je nak repay, more vulnerable to adverse developments, both internal and external, than obligations with higher rating. Not bad lah sampai triple B ni kan. Double B, not investment grade. This rating suggests that likelihood of default is considerably less than for a fewer rated issue. Boleh, but default dia low lah, quite low. However, there are significant uncertainties that could affect the ability to adequately service that obligation. B, indicates a higher degree of uncertainty and therefore greater likelihood of default. Adverse development could negatively affect repayment of principal and payment of interest on a timely basis. So makin turun lah. C, high likelihood of default. Okay, ini default dia tinggi, default risk dia agak tinggi lah. Kan, high likelihood default risk dia tinggi, with little capacity to address further adverse changes in financial circumstances. Dia before the issuance dia akan keluar rating, but during the issuance ni, masa bond tu tengah in the market pun dia keluar rating lagi. So sometimes when the first issue tu AAA, they try to maintain lah AAA ataupun turun ke AA kan, jangan turun sampai sini. The last one is category D, which is payment in default. Maksudnya memang tak boleh bayar. So based on this rating kita boleh tengok lah whether you want to invest ataupun tidak because these are the objective: awareness of the credit worthiness. So, kita nak tengok is it worth it for you to invest in certain bonds. Okay, that is why the focus is actually on timely payment of interest and principal. The objective dia kan, dia ialah lender and borrower. So bila pinjam, dia akan make sure dia boleh bayar balik ataupun tak. So we need this skill. Alright, tadi bond rating. This one is bond valuation. How do we value ataupun how do we calculate the bond valuation? I think this one is already covered in your PFM subjects. You ada belajar bond valuation kan? So it is based on the present value of all future streams of cash flow. Cash flow can be divided into two: interest, income, and also principal amount, which will be received at maturity. So this is the formula for bond valuation. Income plus dengan principal. So price, present value of annuity plus present value of par value. Okay, saya just tunjukkan macam ni je lah because we are not really focusing on the calculation of bond valuation. And then when we talk about bond yield, okay, kita ada current yield, measure of return, current income relative to the market price of the bond. Okay, this is the formula for current yield: annual interest income divided by current market price of the bond. And last one we have yield to maturity. Okay, yield to maturity ni nak dapatkan at the end of ataupun at the maturity date. So rate of return investor earn for holding the bond until maturity. So kita pakai formula finding the price of bond yang depan tadi tu, and then compute for I. So ini you can use the table or you can use a financial calculator. Senang je, ada financial calculator, tekan-tekan je. And you yourself should get one financial calculator, easy for you to calculate when you learn about apa ni, retirement planning nanti, your module 7 nanti, even for you to go for exams. The financial calculator, it helps you a lot. Tak payah tengok-tengok table lah. Alright, so I have a few questions here, the discussion questions for you that you can try to answer. Alright, so first of all, you should be able to differentiate between equity and bond market. The importance of index, initial public offerings, why stock investment risky, what are the factors affecting stock prices, the features of bond, and also what is the rationale of a bond to be rated. Semua jawapan ni ada di dalam notes, but you want to try, and then you should be able to, for example, to explain apa maksud, contoh the difference between equity and bond. Okay, how would you explain the difference between equity and bond market in our capital market ni? And then index, we talked about index last week. We talked about IPO, and then we also talk about the risk in investing in the stock market. Ini semua memang ada dalam notes je. Any questions tak untuk bond? Tak ada I hope everyone masuk kelas guna the web conferencing sebab saya memang ambil attendance from there. And then for quiz, last week saya bagi quiz forex kan. So untuk capital market ni this week saya tak prepare lagi the quiz, but kalau saya sempat upload nanti I will let you know, but of course you will have 1 week to answer lah Minggu ni minggu ke-5 kan? Minggu ke-6 confused saya.
Rasa 6.
Oh, sorry, week 6 dah.
6.
Okay. This week is week 6, so everybody knows that kita punya lecture sampai week 9, baru ada semester break. Tapi I plan for your midterm exam dalam minggu tak ada. Week 6, week 8 before the semester break. Boleh? First week of December.
Week 8 Doktor.
Week 8.
Boleh.
Week 8 maksudnya, tapi saya akan ambil satu tarikh je lah untuk both. I have two groups kan. Kita buat hari 8 Disember boleh? Hari Rabu you tak ada kelas kan? Kan semua orang nak buat exam masa tu.
Setakat ni tak ada apa-apa.
Okay.
Boleh Doktor. Setakat
8
ni lah.
December, 8 December, saya akan start pukul 9 soalan. Kita buat maybe through my guru je maybe 9 to 12. I have to give you time lah nanti kan internet slow lah apalah, my guru tu pun tak berapa nak boleh. Sebab now ada tengah nak migrate to the system. Dia kata my guru not affected, tapi I doubt lah. So, all the system semua dia tutup nanti starting 27 dia tutup sampailah 3 Disember baru dia buka balik. 4 baru start balik pakai the new system tu, but they said my guru not affected. Kita tengoklah macam mana kalau tak boleh. But by 8 ni patutnya tak ada apa-apa masalah lah. You can still access 9 to 12, 8 of December, topics covered. Topic. Okay, of course, topic 1. Introduction, overview of financial market, interest, and money market. 1, 2, 3 cukup lah. Yang hari ni and last week tak masuk lah capital market tak masuk. Kita buat sampai money market je. So ada 3 topik lah. Introduction, interest and money market. Apa?
Soalan dia MCQ je ke?
Ya. Multiple choice. But untuk midterm ni saya buat multiple choice, or maybe kalau saya boleh buat short answer but for your final exam tak ada multiple choice dah lah. Sampai midterm ni kita buat multiple choice. Saya suka multiple choice because boleh tanya banyak soalan sikit. Structure tu tak boleh. Cukup sampai money market ke nak capital market juga?
Cukup Doktor.
Cukup Okay, sampai money market, and I will let you know kalau ada changes nanti. And but please try to answer these discussion questions. Mungkin nanti saya akan post soalan ni dekat forum so that everybody can try to discuss dekat sana nanti. Saya bawa soalan ni ke forum, but I will let you know dalam WhatsApp group kita. It's just that for next week's class, kalau tengok kita punya content next week would be derivative market. Okay, I have upload the video from previous semester's video, because yang tu the speaker is actually from OCBC Bank. So he explained in detail about derivative market. So kalau siapa yang pergi tengok dekat my YouTube channel tu, saya dah letak video on derivative. So untuk next week's class, I need you to still log into this web conferencing for the purpose of attendance. Tapi I need you to watch the video. And at the end of the video, nanti saya akan post soalan quiz lah after that topic for derivative topic tu. Boleh Because this semester saya tak sempat nak panggil and then dia orang pun dah tak ada masa nak buat. That's why bila saya check balik, okay, I have the video so I will share with you from the perspective of a banker about derivative market. So you get a first-hand explanation lah about the derivative market. But if you have any questions about the derivative nanti, kita boleh discuss later. Boleh Don't forget to log into web conferencing lah for the attendance. Nanti saya check balik the My Guru tu possible tak untuk kita pakai dan buat untuk midterm exam tu same time, same day. Sebab Rabu patutnya tak ada apa saya je ada program kat sini on Wednesday tu, tapi should be okay lah, we all boleh start dengan exam je buat multiple choice je. So later I will let you know whether kita ada quiz untuk capital market ni ataupun tidak. And of course for derivative market nanti akan ada lah because you have to watch the video before boleh jawab the quiz tu. Any other question tak?
So far tak ada, Doktor.
Tak ada Ada group B tak dalam ni? Ke semua group A je?
Ada, Doktor.
Ada? Okay, alright. So yang the rest yang tak dapat join today, nanti I will share this video so that everybody else can watch. Sebab Selasa tu saya ada hal tak boleh nak buat kelas. And I'm so lucky so that kita both group boleh jalan serentak pada masa yang sama je I mean the content tu sama, tak ada terlebih atau tertinggal. So boleh join lah. Alright, so kalau tak ada apa-apa, I think that's all for today. 1 jam je hari ni. Sebab sikit je kita just continue the bond je. So for next week, both group A and B akan tengok video derivative market from Cik Kamal daripada OCBC Bank tu. And then week 8 kita akan buat midterm test. So kalau ada orang lain nak buat hari Rabu pagi tu, saya dah ada slot lah, unless you all boleh buat a few exams lah on the same day. Right, so kalau tak ada apa-apa, that's all. Apa-apa updates nanti saya akan bagi tahu dekat WhatsApp group lah. Alright, itu sahaja. Thank you.
Thank you, Doktor.
Alright.
Doktor.
Ya, Doktor.
Okay.
Thank you, Doktor.